Ronnie Coleman. So today we are delving deep into the depths of the greatest of all times training. Now I see a lot of these assessments, these program reviews, these training reviews get almost needlessly negative. This is not going to be one of those nitpicky reviews where I'm like, he could have gone a little bit lower. He would have been bigger if he got a bigger stretch. No, I think we can learn a lot from the positive aspects of his training. So first of all, two important things to get out of the way. The first, genetics. He had them.
I was born with the genetics, which is something that's genetics is God-given talent.
I think we all know he had them. If you look at him when he was 15, 16 years old, you could tell that he was built quite a bit different from the average 16-year-old. And we're not talking about 1 in 100, 1 in 1,000. This is more like 1 in a million to 1 in a billion type of shit. So yes, this plays a role with the type of results that he gets, and you're not going to get his results from copying his training. Duh. And the second would be steroids. Yes, he was on them. Sorry to break to anyone who thought he was natural for his whole career. The question is sort of, when did he start using? Different people have different perspectives. I actually think he was natural for quite a long time. If you toss some of these pictures into Natty or Juice, Reddit, man, they are black-pilled as fuck. I actually think he was natural for quite a long time, but there's also a lot of misinformation. Maybe he was, oh, take these, Ronnie, they're supplements. And he's like, all right, and they're actually steroids. So who knows? It's really hard to tell. Either way, I think we can still learn a lot from him, despite his genetics and despite his usage of steroids. So first of all, let's delve into the exciting stuff, his training plan. Now, I've seen a number of different iterations online when researching this video, and I think sometimes people just kind of make shit up. They're like, yeah, clickbait, this is Ronnie Coleman's plan, and they just sort of write something in that seems like maybe it's true. Perhaps it also changes over his training career. This makes sense. As you get bigger and stronger, perhaps you need longer to recover, perhaps you can handle more volume, or you can't handle as much volume. And so your training plan is going to need to change over time, and considering he was lifting for decades and decades, it makes sense that he doesn't just have one training plan. That being said, almost everything that I saw had him hitting every muscle group twice per week. And I think for most people, this is a good idea. Sure, a bro split might be able to work, especially as you get very big and very strong. But the fact that he was able to recover for twice a week training, I think is a sign that most people can. Again, yes, anabolics, yes, steroids. But again, he's also extremely big and strong. And so those sort of counteract each other. And I think most people are better off hitting most muscle groups twice a week compared to once per week. Next, he's doing basic movements. He's doing barbell rows, he's doing squats, he's doing deadlifts, he's doing pull downs, he's doing dumbbell movements, he's doing some machines. It's kind of a nice mix of barbell, dumbbell, cable, and machine. And I think this makes the most sense. You want some basic movements in there, maybe a little bit heavier, just these big, hard-hitting free weight movements. I mean, look at him fucking T-bar rowing 1,000,000 pounds. Like that is wholesome. And if that doesn't make you want to go to the gym, you're dead inside. So, you know, find something else, I guess. Next, doing mostly moderate reps. It seems like sort of 10 to 12 was his bread and butter. A little bit work slightly lower, like 6 to 8, and then some stuff slightly higher, 12 to 15. And then occasionally he would do sets of like 20 to 30. But I think that seems like mostly just a warm up, like 4x30 on leg extensions. That's probably mostly to warm the knees for squats and leg press afterwards. He also, as people probably know, did 800 pounds for a double on both squats and deadlifts. But I guarantee you that, one, that was not every single week, because he's not going to be going that heavy every single week. He's just not. And second, it was probably more for the camera than anything. Oh, I'm as strong as I've ever been, so I might as well see how much I can lift for a double. And I don't think he ever really, truly maxed out when under ideal circumstances. So I'm pretty sure he could have done 900 pounds for a single if he really wanted to under perfect conditions. He just never did because he was a bodybuilder, not really a powerlifter. That being said, he did have a powerlifting background, and I do think that this kind of shaped his training around squat, bench, deadlift, as well as their variations. And I think this is completely fine. I think he could have gotten just as big, just as thick of a back, just as overall as much mass with other variations and no barbell lifts at all. I think they're good variations, they're good movements, but they're certainly not needed. It also seems that sometimes he used a double progression, 4 by 8 to 10, where sometimes it just says 4 by 12, and he just hit the same number in terms of sets across. Some of these seem to be more on isolations, so maybe he kept reps in reserve for the first few and then went near failure or to failure on the last ones. Or I think on some movements, he probably went to failure on the first, and then subsequent sets were a little bit more body language-y. By the way, this video is sponsored by Boostcamp. So Ronnie knew his numbers, and you should know your numbers as well. Don't just blindly trust the fact that, oh, I train hard, therefore I will progressively overload. That is often not the case. You should be keeping a training log, and Boostcamp is the best way to do that. Plus, you get access to some of the best plans out there. If you don't want to write something out for yourself from scratch, hop on a fixed plan. I've seen all of them. They're all really, really good. Most are absolutely free. The app itself is free as well. And you can use code GVS to get a free week or 2 of the premium subscription. So yeah, give that a shot. I will leave a link in the description. And once again, thank you to Boostcamp for sponsoring this video. But in general, he's training pretty damn hard. He's getting those slowing reps. And even sometimes a partner is assisting him to get the last rep or 2 on some movements. So his proximity to failure certainly is on point. And unlike a lot of professional enhanced bodybuilders who don't sniff failure at all, he's training fucking hard. He's getting those slowing reps and he's actually pushing things. Plus, he's looking to overload every single session. He got stronger across his training career, and that was clearly an emphasis. He knew his numbers. When you hear him talk about training, he's not always the most eloquent or articulate person, but he knows his numbers. He's like, yeah, I do the 120s for this many, the 130s for this many. If I'm feeling good, I go up to the 140s, and I do them for this many reps. And so he was auto-regulating, controlling his training based on how he felt, and he also knew his numbers. He knew what he had to do before going into the session. And if you talk to a lot of very serious lifters, they know this. They know oh, this is what I do for this many reps and this much weight. This is what I do for this exercise, then I move here. It's very planned out. It's very regimented, but there's also a lot of flexibility as well. And I think this is something that you can take away from Ronnie, where he didn't always push things to the limit. He was holding back sometimes as well, and he was auto-regulating and going by feel. Next, rest times. I can't find a single instance where he said, this is how long I rest. 2 minutes, 2.5 minutes, 3 minutes. No, here he went by feel as well, and I think this is something most people should aspire to doing. I see a lot of people that are like, yep, I take 2.5 minutes, and no matter what, I need to go at that moment. No, you don't. You're better off going by feel in this case. End of story. He also did add some intensity techniques sometimes, either drop sets or running the rack or pyramid sets where he's taking shorter recovery times and he's kind of just training for the pump. I think if you're natural, there's probably a lot less value in this. And if you look at most naturals, they don't add a whole bunch of drop sets or a whole bunch of intensity techniques. Maybe a little bit of rest pause sometimes in order to eke out a few extra reps, I think is fine. But if you're just training sort of for the pump as a natural, I don't think you're going to get a ton of mileage from that. Next, let's delve into his technique. Now, Ronnie was doing length and partials before they were cool. He was, if you look at him shoulder press, he's kind of just like keeping it in this part of the range of motion, and he's not going all the way up, but he's also not going all the way down. If you look at a lot of his lifts, he wasn't getting a massive stretch on the muscle, at least not on every single movement. On a dumbbell bench press, he's not going down to his chest, or at least where it would be in terms of a bench press. So he's kind of like keeping it in the mid-range and keeping the tension on the chest. I think this makes a lot of sense, and I think as long as you're getting a deep stretch on some movements, it doesn't need to be every single movement. And I'm going to make a whole video on this, but I think the deep stretch is overrated.
I don't understand.
For example, when Ronnie squats, he's not going down super deep, but he's going down fairly deep, especially with the lighter weights. Some people might say, oh, he'd have way bigger legs if he got a deep stretch. Yeah, I'm going to call bullshit on that. He could go deep, he just doesn't. And it's actually really interesting. His technique changes given the weight that he's using. So when he's warming up and doing like 3 plates on the front squat, which is pretty heavy for most people, but for him it's light. He's sinking it down, he's getting that big stretch, but he's keeping constant tension. He's not going all the way up, and he's instinctively, he was like a muscle savant, man, just in terms of how he was stressing the muscle, and he knew that if he went too deep, he would get fewer reps with the heavier weight. So as the weight went up, he squatted slightly higher in order to keep maximum performance. Now, he's not doing quarter squats by any means, but try squatting in this way. It's actually more difficult in a lot of ways than going all the way down, resting on your joints, chilling at the bottom, and then using your glutes and adductors to stand up. Keeping tension on the quads in this way is actually very, very challenging, and using this much weight with this style shows why his legs were that fucking big. And no, they would not necessarily have been bigger if he squatted deeper. Next, one thing you'll notice when watching Ronnie train is that his rep speed is fairly fast. It doesn't look really, really controlled. He's not really, really exaggerating the eccentric, but he is controlling it. I think if you took a beginner and you had them do this rep speed, it would not be controlled. But the more skilled you are as a lifter, the faster you can take your eccentric and have it still be under control. And so because he's doing moderate reps, he's still controlling it. It's just faster than most people could do while still being under control. And so when people say stuff like Ronnie didn't control the weight, well, no, he did. You're just not on his level. And if you look at him do barbell bent over rows, which do you think actually creates a better stretch? Using quite light weights and really controlling the weight down, pausing in the stretched position with super strict technique, and then really squeezing at the top and pausing and going back down, or using a bit of momentum, getting the hips slightly involved, and using a bit of momentum with much heavier weights. Well, the second one, because if you look at the forces involved, taking that heavy weight and controlling it, but not laboriously so, and then reversing that direction, also using the hip. I mean, you're getting a night and day stretch, and there's no wonder that his back was fucking huge. Next, the mindset. So we're going to go through a few Ronnie Coleman quotes here and sort of delve deep into them. The first one, y'all scared to do it, I'll do it. So I think in essence, essentially what he's trying to say here, if you really break this down, is y'all scared to do it, I'll do it. Yeah, let's not read into this too much. Similarly, everybody want to be a bodybuilder, but nobody want to lift this heavy-ass weight. So he's creating this aura of exclusivity where he's the man. You ever heard that quote, "You're not that guy, pal. You're not that bro, dude." He is that guy. He is that guy. Next, he's very optimistic. Lightweight baby, ain't nothing but a peanut. Easy. Easy weight, lightweight baby. It's easy. I mean, he was very, very optimistic while also knowing that was hard as shit. All right, the next quote. Who? Yeah. Again, we don't have to explain this too much. Just who? Yep. Next, any criticisms or critiques that I might have. Well, I think the biggest one and the most obvious one would be injury prevention or risk reduction. Now, in a lot of ways, hindsight is 20/20, obviously. Genetics played a role here. He's mentioned that. But also he mentioned on a podcast somewhere where he trained through pain. So he would be getting a lot of lower back pain when he was squatting or deadlifting or doing rows, and he would just train through it. And I think that is a big, big mistake. Bodybuilders can often be very, very stubborn, very, very hard-headed, very, very, I need to do these numbers, I need to progress, very driven, focused, determined, but you still have to listen to your body. I think he was really good at this in some ways, but not so good in this one, and perhaps holding back a little bit, maybe keeping a rep or two in reserve, maybe modifying the plan would probably be a good idea. And if you're getting pain in your training, that is almost always a warning sign. Pain is not normal. Sometimes it's nothing, but if it's repeated, if it's getting worse, if it is becoming debilitating, if it's impacting your training, I think it is worth being proactive with working around whatever issue that might be. Now, he has said that his biggest regret was not taking that 800-pound squat for more reps. He did it for a double, and he said that he could have gotten 5. Based on how it looked, I agree. I think that's a very reasonable take, and he knew his body in that regard in terms of performance very, very well. But keep in mind that you are not Ronnie Coleman, and breaking yourself for an extra PR that most people are not going to give a shit about, I don't think makes a lot of sense. For him, it's paid off fairly well. He became the greatest bodybuilder of all time. But I think for the average person, if you're training through pain and if you're looking to break yourself against the weight, realize that the weight is undefeated in this regard. And I think so often when you see a very big enhanced bodybuilder, people just default to genetics and steroids. And those no doubt played a very, very large role here. But I think his training made a lot of sense. I think it was structured well. I think he trained very, very hard. I think his exercise selection is on point. I think rep range is on point as well. Technique, everything. I think his training was a large part of what made him successful, and it should not be overlooked. Furthermore, you can take away from his content not just information, but inspiration as well. He never complained. He was never like, oh, I gotta be here. I gotta be walking on the treadmill. Oh, now, I'm having these health issues, blah, blah, blah. No, he's always been optimistic. He's always been upbeat. And I think that is something that a lot of lifters can benefit from. Anyway, for more on the information side of things, you could check out my books. They will help you a lot in terms of structuring an effective hypertrophy training plan, as well as giving you all the tools that you need in order to coach yourself effectively. I will leave a link in the pinned comment. Thank you so much for the support. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Peace. Time to go to the gym.